I'm sorry.
This is the October 23rd meeting of the Capital Planning Committee. Quick roll call. We've got Doug Morrison is going to be a little bit late. I'm going to fill in for him. Michael Curry, really it's my first one, so I'm glad to be here. Cheryl and Adam, and we've got Ken Songer from the Sewer Department. Rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a little bit of housekeeping first, Ken, if I could.
Sure.
All right, we have the minutes from the capital planning meeting from the 9th of October. You guys get a chance to take a look at those. Fairly short and to the point.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
And I second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No,
I've got nothing.
self-explanatory.
Okay.
Do you want the
And for-
time for the beginning of the meeting? We usually,
Eight-
usually,
Yeah, 1833. Thank you for that. With no discussion, Cheryl?
what's that?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Adam? And I vote
Correct.
yes as well. I believe we have a quorum, three members, yeah. Unanimous. Perfect. Okay, Ken, take it away.
All righty, we just have one item for capital improvement for next year, next fiscal year, I should say. And that is to improve the existing driveway portion of it at the wastewater treatment plant. If you look at the second page, which is kind of faint, but I couldn't do as good a job of drawing as I had a contractor from City Line come down and give me a price, so we'd be, in the ballpark, give a relatively accurate estimate of what it's gonna cost. And the problem we have is, has many different aspects of it. The road right now, the driveway rather, from where it says saw cut, my copy's actually very light.
Yeah.
It's just grindings. That's what it is, grindings. And if you knew the topography, everything sheets down from Baldenville Road underneath the ground. I think it's on bedrock, and it comes out at a swale on the right-hand side as I'm looking. And anyways, the whole driveway just gets kind of fluid, and we have ruts and everything else. It keeps breaking up. It's always been a maintenance issue. But the bigger problem is behind the plant. Right now, the honeysucker trucks, the septic hauling trucks, come down, they go behind the building, and they do a three-point turn, like this. Behind the building is a beehive of activity 5 days a week. When we waste sludge as part of our treatment process, we end up pumping it up to the administration building to a belt filter press, where we press it and get the water out of it. It comes up, we call belt filter press cake. It rides up about a 60-foot conveyor, and it comes out the wall about 2 stories up in the back of the building, and it drops down into one of 2 sludge hauling trucks that we have. We have a 20-acre sludge monofill back here. Besides that, all the screenings and grit that we remove from the Headworks building gets carted by a tractor down in this area too, where it's eventually, at the end of every day, brought along with the belt filter press cake out to the sludge monofill and covered. So anyways, you got tractors, you got trucks, you got people, and now we got the honeysucker trucks coming around here. We've had, if you're a fan of George Carlin, he said there's no such thing as a near miss, it's a near hit. The trucks that are conveying the sludge, the belt filter press cake out, they idle while they're sitting there, so you don't hear trucks coming around the corner, or they're blocked, the sound is blocked by the building. Worry that somebody's gonna get hit, somebody's gonna get hurt. We've had near hits with equipment. Plus, in the summertime, when it's dry, we have a big dust problem too. It just gets everywhere throughout the building, in the offices and anything. So anyways, what we wanna do is pave nearly to the back of the building, upgrade, get rid of the grindings, get processed base, and then put actually more bituminous concrete than what he designated. But in addition to that, in front of the building, we're going to pave an additional area. Here's what it is now. We have a small upper parking lot, which is right here, and then this is paved, that goes in front of the administration building. We're gonna pave like this and then up. So the trucks, instead of having to go behind the building, will come like this, and they'll be able to turn and come right back up, because they offload up here at the Headworks building. So they won't have to go beside the administration building or behind it. It just eliminates all the issues with the competing equipment back there and people. We're gonna increase probably the base and keep with the 2 inches, the 1.5 inches of top coat, but we'll probably go with 4 inches of base, because these trucks typically carry between 35 and 4,000 gallons of septage, and septage is over 9 pounds per gallon, so you do the math, and it's a lot. And there's a really tight turning radius, they'll be able to make the swing, but when they do that, we incur huge forces with the tight turning radius. So anyways, we'll beef it all up. We're gonna improve the drainage and the swale on the side of the driveway here. And like I say, it'll minimize the maintenance, it'll be a big safety improvement. It'll cut down, it'll eliminate the dust, and,
You think it'll make it more efficient too?
yeah,
By doing
definitely, definitely. Sometimes we have trucks keyed up, and, the guys are good, because we have very few haulers that are licensed to haul into the wastewater treatment plant. So they all kinda know, but, yeah, it'll definitely make it more efficient.
The path, it's right here,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I apologize for the light copy, mine was actually, and you can keep this if you want, this one's darker. All right, this is,
I can kind of transpose,
yeah, all right, why don't you hang on to that one anyways?
sure.
Because I have it on email, electronic, so I can print out another one. Is your,
Yeah, mine was
you're
a
just
little
good at
brilliant.
drawing, yeah, okay.
I just,
I got a brand new copy machine, I didn't know, I never thought it would come out light.
I'm familiar with the site just being down there.
Yeah,
not too long
yeah.
ago, So,
And it's funny, because the last 3 years have been unusually dry, and except for the dust, it really wasn't too bad from a maintenance perspective, but this year, where it's been much more typical rainfall, actually higher than normal, it just, you can't keep up with it, and you put grindings down when it's wet and cold, and they just come right up. These trucks are so heavy,
Yeah.
so,
so is
is from
4 inches
city.
gonna be enough, though?
well,
With the
that's the
heavy
thing.
trucks?
I mean,
I mean, it's
City
just
line
gonna tear it
paving-
apart eventually, just, From the weight of it?
Yeah, they have at least a range there, 4 inch to 8 inch.
that's graded base, which is a crushed stone that they put down.
Oh, okay.
And City Line, even though they do some road paving, is more or less residential. It's just, they did my driveway, and I know that they're very responsive, and I wanted a quick turnaround to be able to bring you guys some numbers. So, in all reality,
flag.
even without any increase in the cost of petroleum products, which basically is what drives the cost of the bituminous concrete, we'd probably end up going for $50,000 to $60,000, and then spend whatever we gotta spend. We don't wanna appropriate too little. And when I first started overseeing sewer main extensions, and paving is a big part, obviously, at the end of it, because if you don't do that right, then nobody cares if the toilet's flushing, they care about how the road is. The Asphaltic Institute of America, I believe that's what it's called, has a really good website. You go and you can learn more than you ever thought was involved with bituminous concrete. So we'd get the latest standards and everything else, and we'd obviously go out to bid, and probably end up going with a company that's more commercially oriented. Because I tell you, if you drive the highways, you realize that it's kind of an ongoing process. They try to find a balance between, getting stiffness and malleability because of the freeze and the thaw. You go down Route 2 and you go by Shirley with that real hideous cell tower is that they made it look like a tree. But if you look, you see the pavements like this. And it just fluidized as the vehicles went over and it was warm. There's actually, I went on the Asphaltic Institute like 15 years ago, first sewer main extension project, and they actually have an optimal amount of oxygen that's entrained in the bituminous concrete. It's between 4 and 9%, I believe it is, 4 to 9 parts per million. But anyways, if you have less than 4, then there's no room for it to expand, and it gets fluid when it heats up. If you have more than 9, then the water will penetrate when you get the freeze thaw.
Yeah.
You get 3.4% expansion due to the freezing of water, and it just breaks it apart. So I think that they used too small an aggregate down there on Route 2, and that's why it fluidized. They didn't have the air entrainment. Of course, I have friends at Mass Highway, and they would never give you an honest answer if you asked them what the problem was there. But we'll definitely do our due diligence. I mean, do about everything, pretty much, I like to think.
Do you think it was the base coat? When the.
Well, the base coat's definitely affected too, because if you look at it, I mean, I'd love to get out there and put like a 8-foot straight edge across the travel lane and see the degree.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, and that's why, in all honesty, the $40,000, I believe, is conservative. And besides just going out to bid, I'll have the people down and tell them what we're up against. We'll calculate the weight of the truck, add 20% to it, and, and say, what do you recommend?
So like a tour of the facility, but this is just to get a rough draft of how much it would cost.
Exactly, yeah.
So
I mean, I'm
you
not
have
gonna
an idea.
call in 4 different people, give me a price, and just have to do it again next year. And, City Line, I mean, they did a great job on my driveway. They got, I did my due diligence on them before the wife and I chose them to pave our driveway, and they've got a really good history. But like I say, I think you'd be honest with me.
Ashburnham?
Yeah. I think they'd be honest when I asked them, is this, but he said they pave roads, but I don't know if they work in conjunction with, someone else that.
Do you have, do you guys have a funding source for that, or?
Sewer enterprise.
Okay.
We have about $800,000 in our retained earnings. And we have that money earmarked for things, but the biggest chunk of it was gonna go to Gardner. All of East Templeton sewage flows to Gardner, and we're contractually obligated to pay about 5% of not only their operating costs, but their capital costs over, I think it's $10,000. They're just completed first year of a 3-year major upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant to the tune of $23 million. So we're gonna be on the hook for $700,000. I met with the powers to be early in the summer this year, and we're gonna finance it. I mean, we're not gonna finance it, but they're gonna finance it, and they said basically, whatever their terms are, that's what we'll pay. So, I told them that I would go to my board and ask them to appropriate $70,000 as the initial payment. So now we're sitting on $700,000+ in our retained earnings, which we get to collect interest on. I know, if I was tickled pink, I didn't know if they'd ask for a lump sum payment or something.
So you wind up just having debt payments with theirs, or?
Well, it's just money that we owe them, so
Yeah.
they have the debt, and we just pay our portion of it.
Right.
Yeah, so $70,000 a year, meanwhile, we'll be collecting interest on.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
good.
I was thinking for the last 2 or 3 years, I knew their upgrade was coming. I actually met with them, the city engineers and Dane Arnold, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago now about it. And ever since then, my gears have been turning about, the best way to, the best possible scenario. So when I went in there this spring, I was fully prepared to try to direct the conversation, and so,
Yeah.
it's a big chunk of change and
Right.
whatever. But, Dane and I have a very good working relationship and rapport. So anyways, the moral of that story is that it frees up
Absolutely.
sewer retained earnings to use for other things. I mean, we already appropriated some for this year.
Right.
$70,000 for various things, and, we're in pretty good stead, so.
Yeah, why not? And
Yeah.
now that you know which way they're going with that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're taking in like $135,000+ a year in septic receipts, and also, a couple of years ago, the sewer commissioners, voted to start taking in holding tank waste too, which I've been advocating for close to 20 years, because it's good money. I mean, the stuff's basically water. It's not concentrated by a leach field or anything, and we charge less for it.
What did you say?
It's holding tank waste, tight tanks. We always took it, but they used to charge the same amount of septage, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
'Cause septage is, easily 100 to 500 times more concentrated
Right.
than holding tank
Can
waste. So
see
I kept
that.
telling them, it's a disservice to the people in town that have tight tanks. Like the Fish and Game Club, they have 135 cabins that all have tight tanks that by DEP mandate have to be pumped out every year. So it was just money that we were throwing away.
Interesting.
I'd much rather take that than septage,
Right.
because it's just so much more dilute. So
Right.
now we're taking it, which increases the truck traffic. So if you looked at dollars and cents, you say, well, what's the big deal? You were taking in, $90,000 a year, now you're taking in 135, and I know that's an increase, but because you charge less for holding tank waste, the amount of additional trucks in that increase from 90 to $135,000 is a lot greater number than, if it was just all septic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
It's the balancing act of it.
yeah, and it is, everything's a balancing act. You look and you say, well, this is quite a bit of money, but then you say, well, what's the capital payback on it, and we've had broken springs, on the septic trucks, which is their responsibility. I mean, they can't really prove they did it for us, but
Right.
I've heard them talking about it, and everyone knows how rough it is, and the drivers are getting thrown back and forth because of the, and they're not like typical potholes either. They go from here to the corner of the wall, and, I don't drive big rigs, but I guess when you're in the truck, it gets pretty dramatic, getting thrown side to side. So
Yeah.
I hear about everything. The poop doesn't just run downhill, it runs uphill too, where we are. So, that's it. Other than that, that was
And that's for FY19?
correct.
Okay. Yeah, you had very little on the list to begin with. I think the only thing that I was saw on that, which was Enterprise, was the Pleasant Street Pump Station.
Right, that's gonna be completed in December, knock on wood. In fact, I just started, this week, emails about closing out the,
Was that a debt exclusion?
no,
No.
that's being funded by the sewer department. Sewer users, we're actually, it's the first project of this magnitude that we've done without setting betterments.
Yep.
We're doing it out of our operation and maintenance. Like I said, we got close to $800,000 in retained earnings.
Right.
And a portion of that is gonna be used to pay off the interest portion of, we're getting a grant and low-interest loan
Yeah.
through USDA.
Yeah.
So it's all been factored in there, and, I mean, I tried to convince the board to look at betterments, but,
Yeah. I'm actually looking at the one, like, the usable life for it, so the extension out, so I didn't even realize that you had already had the, your capital, to get it done now, so you're almost done with it.
yeah, we're almost done with it. And it'll be in service as long as we ever need it to be in service. I mean, I designed it to last literally infinite in human terms. It'll go 500 years. It's funny because the contractor that's building it out, they specialize in pump stations. And after the pre-construction meeting, the superintendent, the contractor pulled me aside, and we were talking over logistics, and he said, you know what, I really gotta hand it to you guys. Like, how so? He said, we do a lot of stations. He said, we've done a couple that are close to this one, but none is complete. He goes, you guys really did an incredible job designing
nice.
this and stuff. Everything, everything. I mean, we've got a really good engineering group, and I've been through a few of them too, so we work in concert together. This is gonna be an incredible station. We'll hold an open house. When it's open, I urge y'all to come down and take a look at it. You might not appreciate it not being in the field, but yeah, it's funny because the guys that are putting it together, one guy was saying like, holy mackerel, you can schedule 80 pipe for the air handling in the wet well. He said, "That's way overkill. You don't need that. I mean, the Schedule E is this thick. All it's doing is moving air.
Right.
It is overkill, but, you know, It'll
if
last
you
forever.
Right, exactly. You
Yeah.
wind up extending the useful life for it.
yeah.
And
Because
that, you
typically
know-
they're about 25 years, and you know what? 25 years, this will look like new. All you got to do is replace the shingles on the roof, and everything else is pre-stressed concrete. You'll change out motor control centers, pumps,
Hi, Doug.
SCADA, everything else, you know, and we've sized it, it's just a hair less than twice the capacity of the present pump station. And with our projections for build-out, really Back Bay and all that kind of area, there's no way to build anything else out there. It'll all be in Otter River section. And actually, before the bust in 2008, they were contemplating putting 100 single-family units off Hamlet Mill Road. So anyways, that's built into our master plan that we did. If they did that, that would convey to the Crotty Ave pump station, which is a minor, smaller station. And then it's pumped from Crotty Ave to the Pleasant Street pump station. But we actually have an easement from Route 68 across the old American Tissue property, underneath the Otter River, up to the Headworks building. So if that ever came to pass, we'd look at the contractor to pay a sizable chunk of the expense of not only upgrading the Crotty Ave pump station, but installing a force main underneath there. So that would not only eliminate any future flows from being conveyed to Pleasant Street, it would also remove the flows that are now being conveyed to Pleasant Street. It would take those away. So, you know, durability and capacity-wise, unless they start building 8 stories high, really, I mean, who knows what the future holds? I think before this pump station becomes unusable, they won't have wastewater treatment like we know it now. It'll be done in your house. You know, you'll flush and it'll go through a system and it'll just become, you'll end up taking a baggie every month and tossing it in the side of the curb, you know? Really?
With that, yeah.
I mean, the technology's really advancing a lot, but if it takes 300 years, we're set for that.
Yeah.
You know? And the wastewater treatment plant is designed the same way. We have excess capacity for additional systems down the road that we already can gravity flow through. So if we need an extra, you know, we're rated at 600,000 gallons a day. If we need an extra 200,000 gallons a day, then it'll be expensive, but we don't have to re-engineer the whole plant in order to put it in. We have a 500,000 gallon tank that's sitting idle that was there before we upgraded. We actually lowered everything. It cost us another, I think, $5,000 in engineering fees, so that in the future we can we got a pipe going out there, and we just go out and go into the tank and put whatever structure you want inside there.
You mentioned an open house. Do you have a date for that, Ken?
No, let's wait till the project's done.
Okay.
Well, the
I
last,
mean, a tentative
yeah,
time, like a month or where you're looking at going. I mean,
I don't, and I'll have to think about it. It's just crazy right now with what's going on down there. I mean, it's good crazy. It's just everybody, you know, time's the money. Everybody wants to get their crews in there and out of there, and it's coming together really fast. We're talking about changing over from the old pump station to the new pump station in a couple of weeks, basically. And after that, it's kind of ancillary thing. We're replacing some sewer main, and we're cleaning out the forest main. But the last time we did a project that was funded by USDA, out of the blue, I got a call from Senator Olver's office.
Really?
Yeah, some woman, she goes, yeah, I'm calling from Senator Olver's office. I was like, yeah, Mickey Mouse too, I'm thinking, you know. And she goes, yeah, they said I should call you and to coordinate the giant check presentation. And I'm thinking, I was like, am I being punked? I said, are you serious? She goes, yeah. And I said, I didn't even know Senator Olver was involved with this. She goes, yeah, he was down in D.C. quite a bit to get the money and stuff. I said, well, you know, what do you need? So we did it actually at the fire station up at Templeton Center. And Olver was there, Brewer was there, Goby was there. It was huge. It was epic. All the officials from, you know, well, the local luminaries from USDA were there, and I think some DEP people came up, and it was really fun. So I don't know if they'll, it's Elizabeth Warren now, I don't know if she'll reach out in a similar way, but if she doesn't, I'll have to make sure I put it on my calendar to have an open house. We'll let you know. We'll advertise in a newspaper and stuff.
So for the pump station, you're looking at 2.3 million?
Yes.
But it's almost done.
Right,
Correct.
December, he's thinking.
Yeah, the interesting part is, so I forgot that whole, I mean, the couple years ago when we went through the whole thing that it was gonna fail, like I'm having, recall right now, and we went through the whole USDA thing. But, so I'm looking at the replacement part and just listening to Kent talk about it, I'm looking at this saying, well, there's the 2.3 for 2068, but if he's talking about indestructibility,
Well, and the thing of it is USDA, it's a grant,
Beyond the
low-interest
lifespan.
loan. The low-interest loan goes for a period of 40 years. Without fail, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, I don't know if you'd know, because you're new to the town.
Yep.
But the treasurer has the latitude to roll that over into another pool of money to get better return.
Right.
So they tend to, put it in another.
I think that's what they talked
Loan
about,
and
yeah.
shorten it up.
I know I heard Carter
Yeah.
talking about that.
But it's funny, because that's one of the things that got me thinking about the long-term viability of the station was, everybody says, you don't go out and buy a car and take out a 10-year loan because the chances are you're not gonna be driving it in 10 years. Well, you know what? 40 years, we're gonna be driving this pump station. I've worked at places that concrete structures are 70, 80 years old, and they look like new. A little bit of spalling above ground, below ground, like they were put in yesterday. And those were 80-year-old concrete. This is pre-stressed. There's actually an additive they put in. They were all the concrete was done in a factory down in Wallingford, Connecticut. And they put an additive in there. The vice president was telling me, I went down for a tour, that if it ever develops a thermal crack, this stuff comes out of the concrete and seals it. He said it'll never leak. Never leak. And the roof on it with the shingles is purely aesthetic. It's a dual pitch to make it look good to the neighbors. But underneath that is a 4-inch thick, weather-tight concrete roof. Yeah, I mean, we're excited about it. I mean, the pump station has been it's been overtaxed and outdated for decades. Literally, it's close to 40 years old.
I forget who briefed it, when it was failing. It was in here, it was during a meeting, and it was like, I forget who came in and said it's time.
It was me.
What, was it you?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Had to
someone
be.
else.
Had to be. I know, I think,
Was it? It was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
yeah, we had the worst failure that I've ever experienced in 30 years in this
Yep.
field.
And it was right after the water, I think it was one week meeting for you guys. It was the water tower, because it was 2 USDAs
Yeah,
right on
yeah.
top of each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for the explanation, that's great.
Well, you're welcome.
So are you should we increase the expected life from greater than 50
You
years?
can put it as long as you like.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, literally, I designed this plant, so it'll last 500 years. It'll last 500 years. I mean, what's gonna go on it? There's, the concrete will be good. I mean, with the technology they have now, it's all built in a factory setting. It'll be good 500 years from now. The concrete structure that we're replacing actually is a silo. And the concrete at the top was spalling because of the freeze thaw. Water gets in there, freeze thaws over time. You keep the shingles on this one and it sheds all the water. It's just, and even if it starts to spall, which it isn't, you can repair it. And we thought about doing that with these pump stations, but because of the cost and the fact that they, the current pump station at Pleasant Street pumps about 630 gallons a minute. And when we have high rain events, we have both pumps. Every wastewater treatment pump station has dual pumps. We have both pumps running full tilt, and you don't get 1,200 gallons because 2 pumps are running, because you get higher static head. They're trying to pump. You don't get twice the pipe size diameter when both pumps kick on. So you might gain 20 to 30% increase. So say you're pumping 800 gallons a minute, the pump station barely keeps up with it. We've actually had to have sucker trucks go down there and convey influent up to the wastewater treatment plant, just, not often, because they couldn't keep up with it. And like I say, this pump station, the new one is about double. Wow. About double. And
Double than 800, the
Yeah,
800?
it's just
rate?
under, it's just over, I think it's 1,243 gallons a minute it's rated at.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and the thing of it is the pumps that we put in there aren't very efficient for two reasons. Number one is they don't rag up, and number two, they're self-priming. So you lose efficiency, where a typical pump would be, say, 65% efficient. These are around 50 to 53.
Just because of what they have to deal with.
Yeah,
So,
well, you run a fine line between, when you figure the guys get, 4 hours calling, time and a half or double time, depending on, the day, then if you get them calling in for high-level alarms, then you're better off to pay the extra money in electricity for a little less efficiency than you are calling. And I actually,
For a self-priming
yeah, I
pump,
did a
then,
study on that when I first got hired. We were getting tons and tons of call-ins, so over time, we just upgraded the stations in many different ways, and I bet that we've reduced calls by, well, up until Pleasant Street started really being overtaxed. I bet we reduced them by close to 50% call-ins. So, but now in the last couple of years, Pleasant Street's been killing us. Just, I mean, it handles more flow than any other pump station in town by far. And
Yeah.
when we have to work on it, we have to go down at midnight and pray that we don't have a rain event, and have two to three sucker trucks lined up, depending on if it's been wet or not, just to keep up with the flow while we do what we have to do.
Yeah.
This new pump station, I actually designed a wet well so it's separated. It has a gate valve in the center, and then the influent comes into a trough. That's actually the floor of it's domed, and then there's two just 1 foot square openings. We have metal slide gates, so we can stop the flow to one side, and then get in there and clean it out, have a vacuum truck, take out the grit and stuff, and then we pull up the slide, take it out, put it in here, and we do it the same with the other side, rather than having to stop all the flow to the wastewater treatment,
Right.
Yeah, so, and beyond that, I had to move the water cascades down from the trough into each section of the wet well, and I had to move the suction end of the pump as far away from that as possible. And then I actually argued with the engineers. I had, it's either a 6-inch or an 8-inch high concrete berm put around to contain the grit. Because what happens in a normal pump station is the grit will pile up, and then it'll slowly get moved towards the suction by the action of the water and stuff. And it gets sucked up into the pump, and it's just like sandpaper.
Right.
And it just abrades everything. So I thought, well, if we got clean it anyways, which we know we do, with the wipes and stuff that have plastics in them now, you have to do it a lot more regularly than normal. I said, why don't we get the grit out of there before it gets passed through the pump?
Yeah.
And sandpapers everything away.
Right.
So the engineers actually debated pretty heavily with me about it, because it's just not conventional. But then I told them, I said, you guys don't operate these stations, I do. And we're finding now that other stations that have the same pumps that we're putting in this station, but smaller, they're wearing out now. We've replaced, 4, 6, 8 in the last year. 2 of them just about 3 weeks ago. And for the first time in my 30 years in this field, we found that usually pumps fail catastrophically.
Okay.
These are just wearing out everything.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's a testimony to the materials, the design, and the construction of these pumps. We actually had to call in the specialists, because normally we can fix whatever's wrong with it. It's like, can't get it to pump. It keep going with failure, high water alarm. Finally, I said, call him in. The guy came in, and it turns out you have the spinning part.
Yep.
And then it's encased by what's called the volute.
Okay.
And turns out not only was the impeller worn, I mean, just uniformly worn down,
Right.
but the volute was worn, the inside was worn out.
Wow.
So the tolerances were all off. We have no way to measure that or anything else. So anyways, that's what the technician said, it's just worn out, just worn out. So anyways, we got quotes for new pumps and everything, and we went out to bid, and we had them replaced, but Chuck Robinson, the sewer foreman, says, he comes in my office, he says, come here, you gotta see this, come out in the bay. So we go out in the bay, and he had an old impeller, which, you look at it and you say, yeah, what about it? Well, then you look at the new one about it, and the new one's like a third bigger. But because this one wore so uniformly,
yeah.
you know, yeah, it was really kind of fun to see. And that's what's happened, like I say, 8 pumps. But we got 17 years out of them. The 2 we just replaced at Patriots Road, right up the street here, cost us just over $13,000. So you figure $6,500 a piece, and we got 17 years of very hard duty from them. They don't owe us a thing.
Yeah.
And the new pumps that we're getting in Pleasant Street Station are a new series of the same exact pump. They actually increased the Rockwell hardness of the volute in the
okay,
impeller.
yeah.
And they did some other things too, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I actually asked the technician about the Rockwell hardness and how they determined it, because in the mining industry, they have incredibly hard pumps. But when you increase the hardness, you also lose durability. It's like having a knife that's incredibly hard, but then the edge is brittle. So you can run into a brittleness, and then if it gets sandpapered by grit, like the ones in the mining industry, they make them super hard Rockwell, but then they coat them in like an epoxy. And then they have to rejuvenate that periodically. So I was kind of concerned because ours don't have an epoxy coating, if the Rockwell hardness would be too high, if this was an experimental thing, so I just be the devil's advocate. But these guys are so good. I actually flew out to Ohio and went to the plant before I bought the first set of these pumps. Gorman Rupp Company, and they're just incredible, yeah. They're the best out there, so.
Do you have any other questions on what he brought?
So you're doing the paving down at the treatment plant?
Yeah, we'll plan on that for next year.
And you're gonna do that?
Did you see he had, there, I don't know what I did with it.
I
There was
gave
a
it to
pe- Oh,
someone,
okay.
yeah.
There's another sketch where the pencil, yeah, there you go.
So you're doing that, you know, as a ratepayer expense just out of your
Yep.
budget, I'm sure?
Yep.
You- Estimated life?
Well, the thing of it is, it's repairable too, so, I mean, I don't know, whatever. We're gonna beef it up, like I told, the rest of the committee, this $40,000 estimate is low. The chairman, I've been working with him in particular on this, and he was saying that he thought that, you know, we need much more than 2 inches of base coat. So instead of going for the $40,000, this is just one quote, we'll probably go for 50 or 60 and then spend whatever we have to spend. I'll do my due diligence and find out what, these guys tend to be residential pavers, I think, for the most part, even though they do commercial work. So, but I know they're very responsive and they do good work. But when we go out to bid for real next year, we'll know basically what we want, and then I might actually call some people in and just say, what do you think? This is what we're proposing. And they might say, well, you know, you don't need 4 inches of base, or you might wanna go with, 2-inch aggregate instead of 1.5 inches, or, I mean, they obviously know more about it than I do.
What do
So-
we normally do for expected life for like paving projects?
So again, you know, that's kind of something that it's really just kind of a generalized maintenance. So we put it on the plan for the year that it's gonna get budgeted, but, you know, again, we probably should have a discussion, does this committee want to keep it on the plan? I mean, again, it's, you know, like you said, it's repairable, so it might be, 10 years. we
Right,
need to do it
yeah,
again, or it
they're
might be
addressing
40 years
safety and
before we do it
efficiency,
again.
yeah.
So, in the past, this type of project, it would be on the plan for the year that it's gonna be done, but then it would just drop off, because
Right.
it may not ever come back.
All right,
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine the worst case scenario would probably have it overlaid, I mean, I don't think we'll ever have to do a full reconstruction of this, have it ground down to, the base.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, and that was the only
That's it.
Yep.
project?
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
The rest of the year, I'll be taking off, sitting in a chaise lounge down there shouting orders. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to that.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for your time and your service.
Nice to meet you,
for
Ken.
coming.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Nice to see you again, Adam. Nice to see you, Cheryl.
You too.
Yeah, that check to the contractor
Yeah,
that got bounced back?
Yeah.
Well, I've been getting my head handed to me, a platter on that about late payments and stuff, and So anyway, I told them, I said, I'll check into it and whatever. They moved their office in May. And I think that finally, that's why the payments have been,
It just keeps coming, yeah, it came back.
they received it late because the post office has to forward it.
their
And then this
forwarding
one
must
here,
have
I think the 6
expired.
months is up.
Must be.
Yeah, I just found out, so the next progress meeting, middle of next month, will be very interesting for them. 'Cause I tell you, yeah, I was beside myself.
Yeah, when it came back, I let Kelly know right away, and she's like,
Yeah,
well,
thank you
call
for that.
Carol.
Yeah, because USDA guy was furious that they hadn't got the payment yet.
Oh, really?
Well, the spec calls for 30 days, whatever. So I said, you know what? I'll give you my word. I'll look into it. I'll find out what's going on. So as soon as everybody left, I started looking into it. The first thing I noticed was it hasn't been 30 days. And then I contacted Kelly to find out when the check went out. She told me, it was like, you guys should have it by now. You should get it any day.
Yeah,
Well, then they didn't, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Carol tells me, she goes, yeah, I just got a really interesting and nice call from Cheryl. And it's like, so anyways, it's kind of nice to be exonerated.
yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, this was a little check for $500 and something thousand. The previous one was almost $900,000. I can see why they'd be squawking
Yeah,
about it.
true.
But, yeah.
well, it's
Alrighty.
on them for not letting you know.
Yeah.
Change of
Yeah,
address.
well, that's the thing, it's like, holy mackerel, we used the wrong address? So I have Carol pull out the invoice right here.
That's, yeah,
So then I'm thinking, that's odd. So I get on the website, it's totally different. So I got a contact in the office down there. I was like, hey, Beth, I said, when did your office move? May 2018. So I think the post office only forwards for 6 months.
Right, I
They
think
might be
so.
over, and it's like, hey, tough luck.
That-
So, hey, lesson learned.
that's why it was taking a while to get there then.
Yeah, all right, thank you all. Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks.
No Rich Harris?
Emergency management, I'm gonna meet with him, November 12th. I think he's away right now. I just found out about it.
Okay.
So
he
I'll
didn't,
speak with him, and
all right, so
follow.
we're gonna reschedule them to.
You wanna reschedule him?
What day?
Let's see, fire and how much does fire and EMS have on? The next meeting is, the 8th.
8th, yeah.
Right. We've
Might be a
got
good pairing.
Think so?
so we have the fire, yeah, so EMS, if they could come on the 8th, that would be good.
Let me try that out.
Yep, see if they'll do that.
They're right next to
Narragansett,
them on the
they-
list, so yeah, I agree, the 8th.
Yep, so Narragansett's not gonna come, they don't have any, new projects, that they plan to submit. And the stuff they have was all, already.
I can check with him on the 8th.
So
and-
the school building is still in progress, the truck is way out in the future now. Same with the boiler. So they won't be coming.
Okay,
Yeah, so. And Adam, you're gonna check and see if EMS can come on the 8th?
Yes, I will do that.
Alright. And let's see, I told you Board of Health, they're not coming.
Yep.
Fire is usually a typical, they're one of the typical big,
yep,
consumers. Okay. All right, so if they didn't come,
I did confirm with DPW today. I spoke with the new director, about December 4th.
Yep.
So he is aware.
okay.
Is there anything he needs to submit prior that you're looking for?
He doesn't really need to submit anything prior, he just needs to review the plan and be able to have updates for, everything that's in the plan. So like in his case,
December 4th.
right, so in his case, he's got, this project that was slotted for 2018, I didn't get all of the updates that you gave me done. So that may be one that was
That's
done or
the
deferred, I don't know, so we need an update on.
International Six-Wheel.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Ordered special
1994.
town meeting, 94,
bumper number Hotel
Yeah,
8.
Okay, so this is the one that's on order now.
Okay, the
This
8,
truck's on order now.
which truck's on order again, Selectman Morrison?
I think the one that's ordered special town
Okay, right,
meeting.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, so this is the one that's like due in January, I think.
okay.
Alright. So then, based on his predecessors, he's got, a bucket truck that's scheduled for 19, but that may have already taken place also, so we would need to know that. He's got, the purchase of a new dump truck scheduled for 2019, and the sign-making machine is scheduled for 2019.
So those 3?
Right, so those, or no, we're doing capital planning for, no, we're in 19 now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing the capital plan for 20. Yeah.
I'll
So
have
we-
them.
So we need the status then of all of those in 18 and 19.
18 and 19, okay.
Yeah, and then he's got, a pickup truck and the sweeper scheduled for 20.
Mm-hmm.
That we need to go, are you gonna continue with that, gonna push it out? If you're continuing, what are you replacing it with, what's the estimated cost, those kinds of things. If he has anything, new that, he believes is more important than what his predecessors had in the list, then.
At this point, he may not know.
Right,
Yeah, I'll-
exactly.
I'll see him tomorrow
Um,
morning, or tomorrow
Same
afternoon.
with when you get down now into buildings and grounds. So I think this DPW office roof was done. Fire station roof is ready to go.
Mhm.
I think some of the tractors were replaced. Siding's not ready to go. And the air conditioning was pushed out.
So an update on all those?
Right, so anything that's
Okay.
2020 or less,
I'll,
because we're in 19, right?
Mhm.
We're in 19 now?
I'll talk to him. I was just wondering if you had to bring a report.
No, he doesn't really need to do a report, we just need everything that's 2020 or earlier,
Okay.
we need an update on.
So the sewer department, the proposed sewer department one's for 20.
Yes,
FY 20, okay.
I believe it was 20, was it? My
You
recollection.
said
I
next
think
year.
you
Yeah, 'cause he
said
did
next
say-
year,
he
but
said
yeah.
next year, yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, so anything from 2020 or
I get,
earlier.
I have to play state and federal, and, I said next year, and that meant 19
19.
to me, so
Yeah, this whole
we're
fiscal
we're
year
a few
is
months, a
Mm.
few
It's
months
hard
into
to-
it, yep.
to grasp,
Let's change that.
I agree.
calendar year.
You
Right.
would not get any
Motion.
argument from me. Okay,
And I'll check with EMS for the 8th.
okay. Yeah, you check with EMS, let us know. And I will add the paving to the project. So I've noticed with the spreadsheet, as I started doing your updates, so like something that was, so like down here, like this, I think this is maybe the fire engine. So it's at 300, and we're borrowing for 10 years. So it spreads that cost out over the years. But as soon as I change the date to push it out to the next time it should come around, then it loses all of this and it starts it out at the new date. So I've got to make a change in the spreadsheet so that
Oh.
there's a year borrowed column. Otherwise, it skews the numbers at the bottom because you'll have expense in these years that's not getting captured in the spreadsheet.
You used a formula for this?
Yeah, so there's a formula that
Yeah.
takes, it says if there's a number in this column and a number in this column, then spread it for
Oh, nice.
beginning in the year that's in this column. So it's one formula that looks at those three columns and then spreads that cost for how many ever years. Cause there was something that we had borrowed for in 2019 that, yeah, so the ambulance is what the 300,000 is.
Mhm.
So, it starts in 2020 and goes, 40,760 then for 10 years.
Mhm.
But once that gets done and we change that to 2030, then these numbers go away and get pushed out. But between 2020 and 2030, we actually have this expense.
Mhm.
So that's why I've got to make a change in the spreadsheet. Okay, so I will fix that. So we got any other questions or
I don't think so.
concerns?
I'm good.
Next meeting is fire, hopefully emergency management, November 8th.
Yep.
Motion to close meeting.
I second the motion.
Oh, yes, someone. Okay.
And that's a Thursday, just as, instead of a
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we couldn't meet on Tuesday because it's election
Yeah.
Tuesday,
Mhm.
and we can't have,
Is that the first? So advisory meets on first and third
Thursdays.
I think it's a
on
second. Is
Thursdays.
it the second?
It's the second one, so I'm good.
Okay.
I think that's the only Thursday we have
It is.
scheduled.
Yeah, when I talked to Doug about, he's like, hey, where are you? I'm like, I live by my Google Calendar. And I know that's just so you know, how old are you?
32.
When you get into your 40s, I saw this on Facebook. It was like some kind of meme. It said, there's no way you can control anything unless you have it on a calendar somewhere. And I felt I was susceptible to that. So now everything's on, everything's on the calendar.
We good?
Motion and seconded. All in favor of closing the meeting?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. What is that,